In this video, I'm sharing my favorite takeaways from Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic. Hey there, I am Kate Volman. Welcome to my channel. I love sharing my favorite takeaways from some of the powerful books that I read. I also talk about journaling and ideas to help enhance your business and life. So I would love for you to subscribe so we can stay connected. Isn't it funny that sometimes the book we need to read just keeps showing up in our life until we actually read it? That is totally what happened to me with Big Magic. I'd always heard such great things about it, but for some reason, I just wasn't interested in reading it. But it kept showing up in all different types of conversations, so I finally decided it was time to check it out. I purposely got this book on Audible because Elizabeth is the one who was reading it, and the way she writes and speaks is just beautifully inspiring. It's almost like she was giving advice directly to me while I was in my car on the way to the office. One of the reasons I finally decided to read this book is because I'm actually in the process of writing a book myself. And let me just tell you, it is a journey, a long journey. Some days the words magically flow and I feel like I'm a real writer. And other days I stare at my computer wondering what the heck was going through my mind when I decided to put myself through this torture. So yeah, it's a roller coaster of emotions I have come to have a very love-hate relationship with. But let's get back to Big Magic. It is a book about creativity. It's about giving yourself permission to be imperfect. It's about finding joy in the process of creating, which really speaks to me because it's one of the things that I talk a lot about with my clients and friends, especially when they are really hard on themselves when they're creating anything new. Elizabeth talks about letting our fears coexist with our passions. I love the way she describes it in the book. She talks about inviting fear along for the ride, but we have to make sure that we let it know that we will never actually let it take the wheel. So we don't need to be fearless. We just have to keep pursuing the things that we feel called to. So in the book, she says, "It seems to me that the less I fight my fear, the less it fights back. If I can relax, fear relaxes too." And I just love that. One thing she talks about that I found really interesting is the idea that ideas are actually developing and living all around us. They're out there for someone to notice and do something with. But if you get an idea and you don't do anything with it, the idea is just going to drift away and find someone else who will actually make it a reality. She shares a crazy example of a book idea that she had started but ended up putting it on hold. Well, one of her author friends ended up writing the book that was in her head. It was almost as if the idea said, "Okay, Elizabeth, you're not going to do anything with me. I will go find someone who will." I'm not quite sure I believe that ideas just jump from person to person like that, but it did make me think about some of the ideas that I've had over the years that I never did anything with, but someone ended up doing something similar and it turned out pretty cool. It's kind of like when your friend tells you that they had that multi-million-dollar idea that they're now watching another entrepreneur pitch on Shark Tank. We all have ideas, but we have to actually have the courage to do something about them. Which leads me to another point Elizabeth talks about. We need to give ourselves permission to create, regardless of how scared we are to fail, which can be so hard sometimes. Did you know that the fear of failure is the #1 fear holding people back from living their best life? I mean, don't quote me on that or anything, but I did read it in an article online, so it's got to be legit. But either way, when we want to create, we cannot be afraid to fail. Another idea she shares that I love and actually talk about often with my creative friends is to not coerce your art to pay your bills. If you want to write, draw, podcast, blog, whatever, you don't need to make that the source of your income. There's something to be said about being able to just have fun creating. In fact, the second you turn your fun creative project into a business where you're getting paid to do something, your relationship with that project changes. Which isn't bad. This doesn't mean it has to be a bad thing. In fact, tons of people are able to turn their side project or passion into a business, which is awesome. But there is a difference between starting something and making a living by doing it versus starting something simply because you feel drawn to doing it. You just want to explore. Hey, just because you have a full-time job doesn't mean you can't embrace your creative side and go through the creation process. If you have a desire to start something creative, maybe it's a side project you've been thinking about, starting a blog, writing a book, whatever, you will absolutely love Big Magic. And I totally recommend listening to the audiobook because Elizabeth's tone is just so wonderful. Like I said, it's almost like she's sitting next to you, sharing her advice directly to you. It's awesome. I will definitely be listening to it again. Have you read Big Magic? I would love to hear what your favorite takeaways are, so comment below and let me know. As always, thanks so much for watching. If there is a book that you would love for me to do a review or share my favorite takeaways, please let me know. I'm always looking for great book recommendations. And hey, if you liked this video, please hit that like button and also subscribe so we can stay connected. I will see you next time.